Hello everyone, and just welcome to this short retrospective Black Tournament post-tournament review, whatever it's gonna be called. I have no clue yet. Someone suggested doing something like this where I just quickly go over, the tournament, what happened in it, and my thoughts, etc., etc. So yeah, let's just quickly do this. First, I wanna quickly go over the rules. Um, Nothing too fancy, but I think it's worth mentioning. I liked it similar to previous tournaments, mainly tournaments that I also organized. Having the players have to send index was also part of this, which I find very interesting. That I personally just basically stole from trading card games where they also have often similar rules, including, which is also very card game like, side decks where you can can send in a second deck code for each deck with 5 units maximum, where you can just switch units in and out from your main and side deck as much as you want between the games. I find it very interesting. The only thing that's really different is that the finals were best of 3 as opposed to best of 5. I don't know. Usually the finals in the past at least have been best of 5, and in other games, it's sometimes even that the whole top 8 is best of 5. But given the fact that Wargame games are very long, and the fact that tournaments, including this one of Wargame Red Dragon, tend to take ages, I can't blame him either. Yeah, in typical Wargame fashion, it just took ages to complete. Then let's quickly take a look over the challenge. It was quite unusual the way it was seeded. It was seeded based on time zones, so that someone like me wouldn't play against someone from, I don't know, Australia or something with like a 9-hour difference, you name it. But that also led to some questionable, you could argue, brackets where Joshipu or Nate Memes, anything helps. Nothing against him, he's a very solid player, but compared to, let's say, someone like Boulanger, who had to fight Saltberg, Osakasa not the strongest, but then me, and then here Krot, he didn't have any player that was on the same level as even Saltberg, No offense. So that led to these kind of brackets, and then some players, on top of having a strong early bracket, had some hard losers bracket as well, and were balanced. I believe had to play against Bastard, Milan, and then Red Moon. And beforehand, who did he play beforehand? I think he played against Nick beforehand as well. So that led to some brackets that were sometimes unnecessarily hard. Like, for example, in my losers bracket was pretty easy until General. No offense to Firestarter, but he doesn't take 1v1s just as serious anymore, so he's generally pretty rusty. Yeah, that is, and the idea behind it, I can completely understand why he did it, right? Having players organized by time zones should, in theory, reduce the amount of time it needs for these rounds to be played. But in reality, I don't think it helped all too much. I think part of it is that games are usually best of 3, which means that players tend to be like, I'm not sure if I have the time, so I'd rather play it a day or 2 or 3 days afterwards, even though I may be able to play today. Because if you take a look at the casual tournaments hosted by Red Shield, which are usually best of 1s until the finals, they take very quickly. They're very easy, very quick, fast to finish, right? So yeah, I don't think time zones are, with a few exceptions, too much of an issue. I think it's just the fact that those are best of 3s on top of Wargame matches, tending to last pretty long, and unless it's very one-sided. But yeah, some very hard paths. Also some interesting results, like Nick the Man win against Balanced, because Nick was kind of rusty. Or Saltberg winning against Pekuda, also quite the upset, I would say. I don't think there was anything too fancy. Surprise, a Crot 2-0 Milan. That Milan didn't get at least one game, and same with Milan versus Balance, that it was a 2-0, not a 2-1. Also, Balance losing to Redmoon. Redmoon certainly not bad, but I think if I had to bet on it, I would have probably bet on Balanced, although it was pretty close. And then, yeah, like I've said in the video, I'm kind of disappointed with my own performance, but given all that, given how little I played recently and all that, second place is still very solid, you know. And this is also, I think this is like the first tournament performance by Crot, if I'm not wrong, at least 1 versus 1s, and he went basically undefeated. He dropped 1 game to General, 1 to me, and that's literally it, and not a single set he dropped, so that is very dominant. For me, it was kind of, I think one part of it was that both Crot and I basically, I think we only played 1v1 against each other. Other than that, a couple of team games, but outside of that, I think we only had 1 versus 1. That was, I think, ranked, and that was half a year, maybe even a year by now ago. I think he played Finland or Baltic, and I played Scandi on Punchball. I think I won, but we had little experience of actual gameplay against each other when it comes to 1 versus 1s. And I don't know how he felt. Maybe he felt very confident. Maybe he also didn't really know what to do, but it looked like he was very confident. So for me personally, I feel like that before the tournament, in all the 1 versus 1s that I played, it was really only Putin who constantly or consistently beat me, right? Because I didn't play versus Crowd 1 versus 1s. I didn't play versus Pekuta before the tournament. Not against General in ages. So I didn't really know. I guess in my mindset, I was still going into some of these games with the mindset of having to be the Putin-like player. And I just didn't really prepare properly for those games. And I think me winning against General here was, in a way, lucky that I think I still didn't really adjust to him. I didn't really properly prepare. I think just like against Crot, I only quickly looked at some replays like half an hour before the games or something, or a day before, since I didn't really know when exactly to play Crot. But yeah, so that was not ideal for me from my side. Yeah, so I guess in the end it was lucky that it worked out against General in the losers bracket, but it came back to bite me against Crot. The fact that, I just didn't take it as serious as I maybe should have, if I really wanted to win, which I did. Yeah, then next thing, someone, or like the same comment who suggested it, a person, is literally the nickname, or I guess on YouTube something else. In any case, was the meta of this tournament. And I didn't really take a look at all the replays by any means, but from the ones that I saw and from the games that I played, it felt like, if I had to put it in tiers, not necessarily when it comes to how strong these decks were, but rather how often they were played. So like, let's say a couple of, like, a tier 1 would be, I think, Eurocon Baltic. I think those two were the most played decks. And then tier 2 would be like Entente and Blue mixed. And like tier 2.5 just barely below that, like US, USSR. And then tier 3 DGZ, and then tier 4 the rest of the decks or something. But I think it was clear that Eurocon Baltic, and people pointed it out in the comments, were by far the most played decks, with, I think, Entente and Blue 4 mixed coming a strong second. But I think Baltic and Eurocore were certainly the most played. And I think that also reflects how strong these, somewhat reflects how strong decks are in 1 versus 1s, or which decks are the strongest. I think in ranked, you, especially with Baltic, you notice this a lot more. In a prepared tournament where you know beforehand what your opponent plays, that's a bit different. But I think Baltic is obviously, they're still very strong. The other thing is, obviously you can see my deck here, 3 decks for each. The base deck of, side and normal, and then the adjusted is what I would actually then play. I said it in the video, in hindsight, I'm not very happy with the Eurocore deck that I sent in. I would have had personally preferred Down with the Tigers and some infantry changes, but as I also said, that wouldn't really have made a difference. And as I also said, Eurocore, it is obviously very strong, but at times I'm like really good at playing it, and other times I'm garbage at playing it. Yeah, I don't know why. It's just how it is. However, what you can do is, and I'll link it in the hold on, Chrome. There's Chrome. Link it in the comments. You can first of all see all the replays and download them yourself. Then unfortunately not put into folders into which matches, but you can see here finals, losers round 2, losers round 3. You can see it in the start of the file name. You can download all the replays, and you can also look at this right here to take a look at every player's decks that have been sent in case you're curious. That includes my decks, of course. Here, there, line 19. If you want to see how not to build your decks. Very funny. And that's really all there is to say about the tournament. It was a very fun tournament. It was an interesting tournament. And as a little birdie told me, there might or might not be a 2 versus 2 tournament not too soon from now. But that's still somewhat up in the air. And there might also be a special stream type of thing happening with, or rather against, a certain other top tier player that you might want to watch out for. But yeah, I hope it's gonna be in the near future as well. And I think that's really all there is to it. I'll obviously, as always, be answering questions in the comments and all the jazz. Obviously tomorrow there's going to be another video. This is not going to replace the Sunday or the weekend gameplay video. I think it's going to be Sweden versus West Germany. I think I played a deck that someone sent in a while ago, and Nick was like, oh, I'm going to play Sweden, so I'm like, let's just play this dude's deck, which was interesting. It had some interesting units that you don't really see a lot anymore. But yeah. Hope you found this at least somewhat interesting, and yeah, I'll hopefully see you next time.